Joining us now for analysis of today's hearing is Dave Brat, former U.S. congressman, economist, and the dean of the School of Business at Liberty University. So, Dave, luckily what we saw tonight was a little bit more of a relaxed confirmation hearing compared to the last one we saw. I think everybody remembers what happened during the Kavanaugh one, but I want to ask you, what were your takeaways from today's hearing?
Yeah, I mean, the Democrats are being smart politically. They want to air health care. And so that was the dominant theme. And of course, the Supreme Court decision, if you get into any of the technical details, even a 4-4 vote will still solve it in a Republican direction. So the confirmation of Amy Barrett, that doesn't change matters at all. But that, that takes 2 sentences, and the Democrats know all they need is 1 sentence. And so they're just playing politics today.
And I think it's worth mentioning, too, that looking back after the Kavanaugh confirmation battle, Republicans did build on their Senate majority in a lot of the more moderate type of states as well. I mean, Claire McCaskill was someone who voted against Kavanaugh, and that may have been a big reason why we're now seeing Josh Hawley in the Senate, for example. And speaking of Josh Hawley, he was one of 2 Republican senators today, along with Ben Sasse, who really made an argument about religious liberties when it comes to Judge Amy Coney Barrett herself. So do you think that their arguments are valid? Do you think that she is being wrongly scrutinized, I'll put it that way, based on her Christian beliefs?
Well, yeah, I don't think there's any debate on that if you're rational. And I mean rational like Aristotelian, or you pick any rationale you want. When the Democrat Party has taken out all God language from their platform, I mean, I don't think it gets too much clearer. I mean, the last guy I know that did that was about 1850. It was Karl Marx. And he said, there's no God, there's no human rights. Just trust me for a while. Once we assume power, I'm going to give you all sorts of goodies. And boy, that sounds a little familiar right now. And so, it's unfortunate, the debate right now. We got violence in the streets. The Democrats haven't called down that at all. So to think that the Democrats are going to respect the rule of law in the Supreme Court and theoretical exercises at this point is just, it's wishful thinking on behalf of normal Americans. But the left right now is in full control, and they're marching, and we'll see what happens.
And I'm assuming that the reason why they're doing that is to stoke fears about the possibility of Roe being overturned. It's something that we've heard even before Judge Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation. I mean, it was something that was brought up during Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh as well. But it seems that a lot of people are fearful of this one, perhaps because of her religious beliefs, perhaps because she's a woman, or perhaps the 6-3 majority is just something that could kind of turn the tables when it comes to this issue. So I want to ask you, do you think that Roe is in jeopardy with the confirmation of Judge Amy Coney Barrett?
Well, the Roe decision, even if it did go down, basically leaves it in the hands of states, and we are a republic. And so, they don't want to live in that world. All the Democrat states right now, the blue states, everyone's moving out of blue states into red states. Everyone's leaving New York City and all the blue cities and moving into red cities. And so I don't think they want to go that way. They want total power at the federal level. And, go read Plato's Republic, what comes after a poorly run democracy, and it's tyranny. And then the left charges fascism, but fascism only happens in a big state. And so which party wants a big state? The Democrats. Which party wants a small state where that can never happen again? The Republicans. And so, it's just back to basics. And if the American people have not been educated and don't know the basics, we're in trouble. We are in serious trouble coming up.
And I think a big part, too, that Democrats really fear, too, is that idea of a 6-3 majority, especially with, presumably it would be Brett Kavanaugh as a deciding vote on a lot of these cases. I mean, Chief Justice John Roberts oftentimes is scrutinized by conservatives. But, I mean, a lot of people are saying even if Judge Amy Coney Barrett is on that bench, she could still bring him a little bit more to the conservative side that many people thought that he was initially going to be on, because he won't necessarily be writing in the dissent or anything like that as much. So what would a 6-3 majority mean for the average American? Would it be that big of a shift as Democrats are trying to paint it as?
I think it would, because the elephant in the room that no one wants to talk about is Mitch McConnell and Majority Leader McCarthy in the House are nowhere to be found in this election cycle, right? And so, if they're AWOL in their duty on China and violence in the streets and every other issue, immigration that's central to Republicans because they're scared of losing seats. But if they don't get serious, we'll lose the country. Well, then the Democrats have proven that our leadership will roll over. And so the only thing left hanging is the Supreme Court. And that's what you just said. And so does it matter? Yeah, it matters, because it's the only thing between us and the barbarians at the gate.
And Dave, before I let you go, that's a very interesting point because it kind of suggests that the court does have a little bit more say, perhaps, in our everyday discourse than maybe they should. So is the idea why the Supreme Court is so important now because a lot of these disputes do end up in the courts because our elected officials, for example, are unwilling to make compromise?
Yeah, sure. I mean, just look at Pennsylvania. The state Supreme Courts push the election out 2 weeks. It's unheard of, right? The election going out 2 weeks, collecting votes until you get enough. Will it go more than 2 weeks? Michigan did the same. And so, yeah, they know at the end of the day, all those suits end up in one place, the Supreme Court of the United States of America. And we hope Lady Justice remains blind, right? And this remains a nation under God and under the law, not under men, because we are very fallen creatures.
And in fact, that's the justification that a lot of Republicans are using in order to fill that seat. They didn't want it to be a 4-4 tie or anything like that, where there could very much so be a constitutional crisis. Of course, if you do have that 9th justice on the court, you avoid those headaches that would inevitably come with that type of decision. But Dave Brat, I really appreciate you coming on the program tonight and breaking down where we stand in this confirmation battle. Thank you.
You bet.